Racon Gunner here, and there's two ways you can run an adventure. One is with shock and one is with horror. So the first way is for shock. The story is there's a werewolf terrorizing a small town, and there's a mom and her daughter, and they're making cookies in the kitchen, and they run out of flour. And so the mother asks the daughter, she says, hey, can you go down to the baker and can you pick up some flour for us? And hurry up because the sun's going down. It's okay, mommy. And she leaves the house. Mom locks the door behind her and the little girl works her way down through town to the baker. As she goes by an alleyway, we cut in and we kind of see the snout of this werewolf, right? As he kind of like the jaw protrudes and his teeth come out and saliva's dripping from the jaw, and the little girl slowly walks across the alleyway. Then we cut into, she goes into the baker, she buys some flour, and as she leaves, the sun's about to set and she kind of hurries home. On her way home though, back past that alleyway, the werewolf leaps out from behind a dumpster, right? And the girl freaks out and starts screaming and running from home, but it's way off in the distance, and this thing is, 8 feet tall and way faster than her. So like a cat playing with a mouse right before it's supposed to eat, he kind of bats her around, knocks her down, trips her up, kind of like maniacally laughs a little bit before he rips off her skull and drinks the blood from it. That's shock. Now for horror. I'm going to tell this story, same plot line. This time, mom and daughter are baking cookies at home, but there's music playing and the two of them are dancing. The mom's twirling the little girl around, right? It's warm and friendly. The mom goes up to the cupboard and looks inside, and oh no, we're out of flour. So the little girl says, don't worry, mommy, I'll go and I'll get some flour for us. And the mom says, oh no, it's too dangerous, the sun's going down. And the little girl says, don't worry, mommy, I'll be quick. So the little girl quickly leaves the house with a little bit of money. The sun hasn't quite set yet, and there's a nice little breeze going, and she kind of skips and sings the song they're both singing on her way to the bakery, right? And behind her, like the wind is blowing the leaves, and it looks like a little parade, and everything is fun. As she goes by the alleyway, she kind of hears a can knocked over in the distance, but she only misses a little beat and continues her song and marches right into the bakery. The door has a bell on it and it rings, and the baker sees the little girl. Hello, he says, and he comes from around behind the counter and he comes up to the little girl and he shakes her little hand. How can I help you? He says. And she goes, oh, we're baking cookies and run out of flour and we need some flour to finish it. And here's the money. And so he takes counts out the change one by one from the little girl. And then he hands her this sack of flour, and the little girl holds onto it like a baby in her arms. Bye, he says, hurry home. So the little girl steps outside and the door shuts behind her. Now the lighting's changed, right? The sun's almost about to set. The wind has died down. The little girl is still in a cheerful mood, but she's a little bit more cautious, so she's humming the song. So she walks down the street, and as she gets by the alleyway, she hears another sound and freaks out, right? Her eyes get wide, and she starts to walk faster for her house. Cut back to her mother. Her mother now is still singing a song. She's gone on to another task. She's deep inside of a cupboard looking for a pan. The pans are crashing all around her. She needs the right one. Cut back to the little girl. Now the little girl is running. She's trying to pick up the pace. The door is still way off in the distance. Cut back to her mother, right? Her mother now is up in a cupboard. She's looking for something else. The spices are falling out. The sound is really loud. The little girl finally gets up to the door and she beats on the door. Cuts back to the mother. The mother doesn't hear her. She doesn't hear what's going on. Cut back to the little girl. The little girl now is turned around with her back to the door, right? She can't say or scream anything. Fear is like overtaking her, right? She's got the flour bag holding it right up against her like such. And she bangs on the door again. Boom, boom. Cut back to the mother. The mother goes, huh? Oh, it must be my daughter back from the bakery. So she starts walking towards the door. And as she walks towards the door, her apron gets caught on like a little corner of the cupboard that's sticking out. And she doesn't want to tear it, so she stops and she kind of like gently like undoes it so she doesn't tear her new apron, right? And then she moves towards the door, and as she moves towards the door and she's about ready to grab the handle of the door, boom! The door shutters, but a puff of flour comes up from underneath the door. Who killed the little girl? Well, in shock, the little girl is killed by the werewolf. You clearly see the werewolf. You get to see the werewolf toy with the little girl like a mouse, like a cat toys with a mouse before it eats it. But in the second, in horror, right, we never see the werewolf. We allude to the werewolf. We suggest that there's a werewolf. And now the werewolf is in your mind, right? It's in the mind of the viewer. It's in the mind of the participant, of the storyteller. We get to imagine who the werewolf is, right? What it looks like. Maybe your imagination is the werewolf from, American Werewolf in London. It's the scariest werewolf you can imagine, not the scariest werewolf I can imagine, right? And then the little girl is killed off camera. So she's killed outside the door. So the murder happens in your mind, right? That's horror, right? It's personalized. That's how you should run your adventures, in my opinion.